Chapter 20. Adeena's dad watched in awe as she unpacked the Duncancello in the great room of the cottage.
"I've been waiting to see what all the fuss is about,"
he said. She held it upright so he could take a closer look.
"Oh, nice," he sighed. "Pure perfection."
Her mother in the kitchen didn't seem impressed.
"What's so special about it?"
Adeena looked at her father and smiled. He shrugged. This was one of those things you either felt instinctively or you would never understand. Father and daughter chuckled.
"It's the oldest surviving cello in the UK,"
William called out.
"Almost 300 years old. And the guy who created it apprenticed with Antonio Stradivari."
"Oh, well," Jackie mused. "Bravo, an Italian designer.
What's he like, Gucci or Armani or something?"
Adeena laughed. "Mom, he didn't make shoes or purses." She noticed her father studying the cello closely.
"I thought this was supposed to be on display at the gallery,"
he asked, without taking his eyes off the instrument.
"Didn't the exhibition open already? How'd you get it?"
Her mother looked over at her, smile gone. Adeena knew this was going to come up. "It needs to be played, and I'm the only employee at the gallery who's an actual cellist." Her mother didn't seem convinced.
"What's Tara say about this?"
"She's okay. We got a copy made for the exhibit, so this one can be played." William choked.
"A copy?"
Adeena needed him on her side. "It's done all the time. We got Thomas Peter down at Gatineau to make it. He copied some of the most valuable cellos and violins in the world, down to the tiniest detail, perfect replicas."
"Yeah, but they're fakes. It's not the same, not even close."
Adeena took the Duncancello and held it upright. Maybe it was time to tell them more. "There is something else, and I need you both to believe me." She could feel her pulse racing, but needed to get this out. "This is actually my cello." Her mother, who had been peeling a carrot, put it down and wiped her hands with a towel. She walked over near to where Adeena stood holding the cello upright.
"What are you saying, Belle?"
Her father stared at her. They were making her uncomfortable, and suddenly the room seemed warm. "Can you both sit down for a second and just listen, okay?" William sat on the edge of the leather sofa in front of the wall of windows looking out over the lake. He seemed worried. Her mother remained standing, arms on hips. "It's okay, tell us." Adeena closed her eyes and saw James and George. "This cello belonged to Catherine Carnegie in 1745. Her father stared intently at her.
"It did? How do you know?"
"Her brother told me on the way to Drummond Castle." She waited for their reaction. They looked confused. "I know you're going to have me sent back to the hospital when I tell you this, but no one else believes me. Philip certainly doesn't." She felt her eyes watering, but blinked the tears away, determined to finish. "Mom, Dad," she took a deep breath, finally saying out loud what she had never spoken before. "I think Catherine and I are the same person." Adeena couldn't hold back the tears now and started to sob, barely able to continue. "I don't know how it can be, but somehow she's inside me." Her father stood up and took the Duncancello from her. Her mother stepped forward and swept Adeena into her arms. "It's okay, ma belle. It's okay. We're here for you." She had finally said it. It was one thing to think that she and Catherine were the same person. It was quite another to say it out loud to someone else, least of all your own parents. "Do they believe me?" She pulled away from her mother, searching her face for clues. Adeena couldn't tell, but she could see the concern in her eyes. Her father wore the same worried expression.
"Pumpkin,"
he began.
"This must be killing you, going through this."
He hesitated, and she got the sense he was selecting each word carefully.
"Your grandmother used to tell me things I couldn't believe, but lately I'm just not sure about anything anymore."
It was his turn to give her a hug. "Dad, somehow Catherine and I share a soul, or whatever you might call it," Adeena said quietly. "And I found a way to go back and help her." Her dad nodded his head and held on to her tightly. She felt herself fighting tears. "I don't really know where she begins," she sobbed, "and I end." Adeena lay in her bed staring at the ceiling. She had told her parents everything that happened when she played the Duncan cello and became Catherine Carnegie. She didn't go into great detail about James Drummond, only that Catherine and James were a couple. Her dad asked lots of questions, and while he wouldn't confirm he believed that she traveled back in time, he reviewed everything she told them in great detail. He probed, asked all the right questions. What he was really thinking was hard to say. He seemed to be playing the role of professor reviewing a student presentation. But maybe he really wanted to believe her. She had mentioned her grandmother a few times, and it made him wince each time. Was he worried his daughter was becoming just like his mother? The mother that had caused him pain as a child and so much worry as an adult. Adeena wondered what her mother was thinking. While her dad asked lots of questions, and genuinely seemed like he was trying to help her by sifting through historical facts, her mother had stood in stone silence. Wasn't her job as a psychiatrist to ask questions? Adeena knew about the research she had completed for her PhD, studying autistic children with clairvoyant-like abilities. Was she trying to develop a theory for this, her own daughter's fucked-up psychosis? What a family. Dad, the historian with a crazy mother. Mom, the psychiatrist who works with crazy people. And me, the crazy person. She smiled, finding some humor in this profile of her nuclear family. The door to her room was slightly ajar, and she could hear her parents still talking about her. They were trying to be quiet as they discussed the situation in front of a crackling fire. "You think Tara knows she's got that cello?" her mother asked. There was a long silence, punctuated by the popping of burning logs in the fireplace. Her father must be thinking about that one. Adeena could see him in her mind, not wanting to believe his daughter was a criminal.
"I don't know. I'm really not sure,"
he finally responded. "If she's taken it without permission, she could be arrested," her mother said. God, why can't this ever end? Adeena knew they were referring to her teenage years.
"No,"
her father replied.
"this is different. I don't think she's taking drugs, and that Kurt asshole isn't pushing her this time."
There was another long pause.
"Maybe this is the Stuart curse all over again, like Mum."
"Oh, God," her mother gasped. "I hope not."
It haunted her until the very end.
Adeena thought about her grandmother. Haunted was the right word. She now understood her better than anyone else ever could. Somehow, Catherine had been in her grandmother's dreams too. The difference was that Adeena was living the dream as Catherine. Her parents still blamed Kurt for that awful night of the prom. She went alone because the day before she had caught him in bed with Brandy, the new girl that had just joined the band. Asshole was right. Adeena and Kurt were not just lovers. They were also a songwriting team. But apparently fucking Brandy was more important than creating music with Adeena. Adeena had gone to Kurt's house to ask about changing the ending for a song they were working on. She found him on the couch, naked, between Brandy's legs, fornicating with abandon. Adeena grabbed his prized Gibson electric guitar. They had used it to write and perform some amazing songs together, collaborations that fused their creativity and, she had thought, their love. She held the guitar high above her head, brandishing it like a Neanderthal threatening a grizzly bear.
"What are you doing?"
Kurt yelled.
"You fucking crazy?"
Adeena swung the heavy guitar in a circle over her head. "Maybe I am, fuckhole!" The naked Brandy slut screamed as Adeena smashed the guitar to the floor, and then swung it around and around, smashing a lamp. "Stop!" Kurt yelled. Adeena was wild with rage. She took the guitar, turned it, and heaved it against the picture window behind her. The glass shattered dramatically. "Fuck you, asshole!" she yelled as she stormed out, leaving behind the boy she had given her heart to for the last 3 years. And more importantly, the music they had created together. It had elevated their relationship to another level entirely, in her mind at least. Adeena rolled over in bed, reliving it all. The very next night she went to the prom, alone. She was still in a daze, drinking and stumbling through the evening. She saw Kurt on the dance floor with the slut. Someone offered her a blue happy shit tab. She didn't hesitate and dissolved it on her tongue. It wasn't just simply jealousy that drove her. She wanted to blot out the dreams they had created together, the music she and Kurt had worked almost demonically to compose, to perfect, and to triumphantly perform. Why couldn't she be like other kids? Kids who were happy just enjoying music, instead of taking the express train to hell trying to create it. The prom ended for Adeena at the hospital, with her frightened parents being woken up by the police in the middle of the night. It was late the next afternoon when she opened her eyes to find them surrounding her, thankful she had not left this earth. Now, as she lay awake in the cottage listening to their whispers just outside her bedroom door, she thought about how they had always been there for her. Maybe this time she was expecting too much of them. The next morning, Jackie was up early. She wanted the new TV on while she got set for a day of cooking and baking. "So that thing works now?" Jackie called out to her husband as he put on his jacket.
"Should be okay. Just use the remote to pick the channel you want,"
he responded as he put on his jacket. William glanced at the shopping list.
"Is this everything?"
"I think so. Make sure you get pastry flour, not cake flour. And pure lard, please, not shortening." He nodded and blew her a kiss before heading out the door. She was in a baking mood with 2 empty shelves in the freezer reserved for Jackie's apple, rhubarb, and cherry pies. She would soon fill them again. It was Monday morning, and it felt strange to still be off work. She had managed to get an extra week off while William was finishing up his sabbatical. Looking after Adeena was her priority for the week, her sole patient, as it were. Jackie needed to come up with a strategy for helping her poor, suffering daughter. That, along with getting the crust just right on the pastry. She smiled, thinking there was a better chance of success with the pies. Adeena's emotional revelation last night left Jackie and William at odds. She burned thinking about his reasoning. He argued that the historical facts, the diary he brought from Scotland, and of course his family's affinity for ghosts from the past, all pointed to the strong possibility this could really all be happening. Jackie didn't buy it. She spent 3 years of her life completing a PhD to prove that clairvoyance demonstrated by some autistic children had a scientific basis. While there were a few cases that defied easy explanation, almost all of the children's abilities were due to factors such as near photographic memories, intuitive reasoning, and in some cases perhaps, a type of memory that predated their own birth. She had just read a study with evidence that DNA markers can transmit epigenetic memories across generations. Did something get passed down to Adeena from the Stuarts? Jackie would figure this out one way or the other. Sometimes the best way was to get busy with something else, while your mind sifted through options in the background. Jackie reached for the remote and clicked the red power button. The new flat-screen TV in the family room lit up. She poured some coffee and checked on the pea soup she was making. The ham bone and dried yellow peas had come to a boil. She turned the flame down and covered her tall, cherry-colored Creuset stockpot with its tightly fitted lid. On the TV, she noticed a preview for an upcoming segment on the morning talk show. "Adeena!" she called out. "Come and see this. They're doing a thing on the NAC, on the orchestra." Jackie carried her mug of coffee into the family room and turned up the volume. As the commercials ended and the next segment on the show began, Adeena emerged from her room, looking like she hadn't slept much. "Morning," she muttered, shuffling zombie-like to the kitchen. "Morning, Belle," Jackie replied in a sing-song voice. "Sleep okay?" Adeena mumbled something as the sounds of classical music came from the TV. There was an exterior shot of the National Arts Center, then a close-up of a man sitting at a piano making notes. The caption under him read, "Friedrich Lang, NACO Music Director." "Adeena, look! Is that your boss?" Jackie exclaimed. Adeena stared at the TV, trying to focus. "Yep, that's Lang. What is this?" "Not sure. It just started." The image of the conductor gave way to a pan of the NAC orchestra in concert, and then some close-up shots of them rehearsing. Adeena walked into the family room from the kitchen, sipping a coffee. "That's our rehearsal," she said. "Oh, that's Southam Hall." Adeena put her drink down and flopped onto the stuffed chair across from where her mother sat on the sofa. The TV scene changed to a live studio interview with one of the program's female hosts seated at a table in front of a stylish wraparound fireplace in the background. Friedrich Lang sat across from her, smiling. He wore a collarless white shirt. "Tell us about your composition, maestro," the host began. "It's brand new, right?" "Correct," Lang replied. "I call it Voyage of Destiny. I've been actually working on it for some time." Adeena stood up. "Liar! You stole it from me, you bastard!" Jackie looked over at Adeena. "What are you talking about?" "Just a sec," Adeena snorted. "I want to see what kind of bullshit he feeds her." The host of the show looked impressed. "It's not often we have the music director and conductor of our National Symphony who is also a composer. Can you tell us more about your new work?" Lang smiled. "I have always been drawn to Brahms and Bach, naturally. But my hero, of course, is Ludwig." "Beethoven?" "Yeah, naturally I am not comparing myself to him, but in Germany, where I grew up and studied, he was everywhere. It felt like he was alive, still composing, inspiring me to find my voice." "Fascinating," the host gushed. "Is your work a tribute somehow to him, to Ludwig von Beethoven?" There was a long pause as Lang considered the question. "I always wanted to capture his journey, his voyage, painful and difficult as it was towards his musical destiny." Adeena grimaced. "What a fucking load of crap!" "Adeena," Jackie interrupted. "He's your boss." The interview lasted another few minutes and included cutaway shots of Lang leading the orchestra in rehearsals, playing Catherine's score. Adeena grabbed the TV controller as the interview ended and turned the set off with a purposeful click, as if vanquishing a demon. "Wow," she snapped. "I can't believe he is getting away with this. He took the music Grandma sent me and is trying to claim he wrote it. A tribute to Beethoven? Fuck!" Jackie got up from her chair to check on the soup. "Are you sure it's the same music?" "He hasn't changed a single note," Adeena replied. "Mom, it's breaking my heart. I am so pissed off about this." She walked back into the kitchen. "You know, I almost want to quit. Tell the whole world what he's doing." Jackie was worried. Adeena had always been impulsive and stubborn. "You've worked your whole life for this chance. You told me since you were 5 that you wanted to play cello with the orchestra. You can't quit now." "It doesn't bother you what he's doing here with the music? Passing off a composition that's not his?" Jackie pulled up a stool in front of the island in the kitchen and sat down. "Have some breakfast, Adeena," she said. "I made some carrot muffins, the ones you keep asking me to make all the time." "You don't care?" "I do, but I think you have to be smart about this. You're going to lose your job if you're not careful," Jackie said. "Sit down, put something in your stomach. We'll talk about it. Do you have any idea what that music means to me, or who really wrote it?" Jackie rolled her eyes. Why did her daughter have to be such a penchant for melodrama? "Okay, Jackie, Psych 101. Listen, repeat for understanding." She chose her words carefully. "This music is important to you. You don't believe I understand where it came from." "Exactly." "Well, tell me then. Where did it come from? What does it mean?" She paused. "To you." Adeena groaned. "Mom, I am not one of your patients at the hospital." Jackie chuckled. "I'm sorry, Belle. You're right." She took a sip of her coffee, recalibrating her approach. "Maybe there is something you can do with your boss about the music. I just don't want to see you get hurt. You need to finally do what you've dreamed of your whole life. I don't want to watch you mess this up." I know, Adeena exclaimed. She blew out her frustration with a sigh. "It's like what I was telling you and Dad last night. When I play that music on the Duncan cello, She stopped, unable to finish her sentence. "Come here, sit down beside me." Jackie patted the stool beside her. Adeena dropped heavily down onto the stool and lowered her head towards her mother. Jackie put her hands on her shoulders and massaged her daughter's tense muscles. "It's going to be okay, Belle. We'll get through this together." "Thanks, Mom," she replied, without lifting her head. "I just need someone, anyone, to believe me." Jackie had heard that statement many times before. Some of her toughest cases went nowhere until the patient felt they had found someone who understood them, someone who believed the truth of what they were experiencing. "Adeena, I believe that what you told us last night is completely real to you. It's like you and Catherine are the same person, and that cello and that music are some kind of, I don't know, bridge that unites you somehow." Adeena looked up, her mouth gaping open. "You believe me?" "Yes. You don't understand how this could be happening, and you need to make sense of it." Adeena stared at Jackie, digesting what she had just heard. "Wait, did you say completely real to me? You mean it's not actually real, it's just real to me. Is that what you're saying?" Jackie sighed. "Adeena, what seems real to you is real." "Oh my God, you don't believe me. You're just playing doctor." "Belle, I'm trying to make sense of all this," Jackie replied. "Yeah, I'm a psychiatrist and I've seen this before, but I'm your mother first." "You've seen this before?" Adeena stood up, her tone rising in anger. "You've seen patients go back in time and become another person? Wow, thanks, Mom. Now I'm a fucked up nut job just like all your other crazies." "They're not crazy and neither are you." "You don't get it. You're just like Philip," Adeena exclaimed. She pointed to her bedroom door. "The cello in that room connects me to the past. Not just dreaming about it, actually going back, becoming Catherine Carnegie, the woman who wrote the music that son of a bitch is trying to claim he wrote. Catherine, who is falling in love with James Drummond, the Duke of Perth. The same Catherine that Grandma dreamt about for so many years. I am Catherine. Or she is me, or—" Adeena hung her head. She put her hands to her face in frustration. "I don't want any of this. I just want to be who I am. Whoever the hell that is." Dr. Benjamin Lochiel had seen plenty of CT scans in his 26 years as a neurologist. The tools he used had evolved dramatically during his career. He felt like a pioneer some days as new techniques in X-ray computer tomography were unveiled at an ever-accelerating pace. No sooner had he started to understand the latest breakthroughs than he was called to attend yet another demonstration of an even better imaging technology. But the series of CT scans he was looking at now just didn't make sense. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Could it be the new tech he had started using had a bug? Something that would account for what he was seeing on his monitors. And now his colleague was spouting gibberish.
"Say again,"
Benjamin said, as he stared at his high-resolution monitor. Benjamin was on the phone with Dr. Raymond Chung, a neurological researcher from the University of Ottawa, who had helped develop the new CT imaging software.
"I didn't get that last part."
"The series of scans shows accelerated rates of neurogenesis from what I see," Dr. Chung said.
"Neurogenesis? New cells?"
"Yes, like in a fetus. Generating neurons from neural stem cells," Dr. Chung explained. "At least that's what I'm thinking looking at these scans. I've been focusing my own research on this area. Adults have a steady rate of new cell generation, but I've never seen this rate of growth in anything but prenatal brains." Benjamin peered closely at the looping scan sequence on the monitor. He removed his glasses and magnified the resolution.
He
said.
"Strangest thing, isn't it?"
"How old is this patient?" Dr. Chung inquired.
"Just a sec.
Benjamin flipped through his charts.
Let me see here. 29.
There was silence at the other end. "Interesting. I want to do some more work on this. I've never heard of this rate of generation in an adult before. I wonder—" Benjamin waited for him to continue.
"Wonder what?"
"Dr. Lochiel, I should come over and take a look for myself. Make sure the system is calibrated correctly. And I also have a new test with a synthetic thymidine agent that we're testing."
"Thanks. Let's set something up for next week.
Benjamin hung up the phone and looked at the scan one more time.
You've got an amazing cerebrum, lady. An impossible, beautiful brain.